If you're going to be a pilgrim on the Camino de Santiago, it takes a lot of planning. You need airline tickets, time off work, the right backpack and equipment. You might brush up on your Spanish. You have to think about rainy days, days where the heat is intense, things you're going to eat and drink. But one thing matters more than anything else in your journey. Your feet. Depending on how many detours you take, the Camino is about 700,000 steps. Step by step, it rubs on the skin of your soles. Blisters can form. There are 26 bones in your feet, each one absorbing a little bit of the shock with every step along the way. So you're going to need some sturdy hiking boots as you go across the rocks, and yet they've got to be lightweight enough to not weigh you down for the journey. Blisters, infection, plantar fasciitis, heel strike injuries, bedevil the pilgrim. One trail veteran writes in a guidebook, "Every day, just as soon as I claimed my bunk, I tended to my feet. I removed my socks, I bathed my feet, I put 4 drops of lavender oil on them to fight off infection and moisturize. I gave my feet ginseng jiu-jitsu energy point massages. I would not have survived without wide medical tape and Compeed to treat the blisters." Your feet. It's where the rubber meets the road. The sole of your foot is the soul of the journey. Walking is the point, the essence of pilgrimage. Ignore your feet at your peril. Psalm 32 says the same thing about your soul that Camino pilgrims say about your feet. If you neglect it, the journey eventually stops. If we don't tend honestly with our souls, it begins to fail us. When we don't take the time to fill our souls with goodness and love and beauty, the skin starts to wear thin and blisters form. Each time we look away from suffering or injustice, it builds up calluses on the heart, and we lose our sensitivity. Little compromises make it hard to recognize larger compromises. And one day we wake up and realize we've drifted off the path towards justice and righteousness. Not because we took some kind of terrible U-turn, but because we neglected the soul. The psalmist talks about what it feels like inside when we don't tend to our soul. When I kept silent, in other words, when I did not come to God and speak and be honest, when I kept silent, my bones wasted away. And my groanings went on all the day long. When we're holding things in, when we're not being honest with ourselves and God, it talks about our bones wasting away. Think about that. Our bones, that's our structure, right? Our bones, they hold us up. Otherwise, we would be blobs, right? When somebody doesn't have the courage to stand up, we say they are spineless, right? We have to have something holding us up. Our bones are wasting away. We say we feel things down in our bones, right? The elbow aches and you know it's going to rain. We all have our tells. There's a book titled "The Body Keeps the Score." It describes how we often store emotional pain or grief or shame somewhere in our bodies. Our trauma, it might lodge itself in our aching back, in our stiff neck, our upset stomach. We all have a place that our anxiety, our suffering, it goes, and we start to feel it. And if we ignore it, it only gets worse. At some point, our body, our soul, it demands attention like the rock in our shoe. My shoe's untied. And I keep thinking about it. We have to take the time, pay attention to our footgear, protect ourselves. Imagine taking the same care of your soul as a pilgrim takes care of their feet. St. Ignatius suggested that we go through just a brief daily examine to look back over the day and see how things went. And he said, don't start with self-criticism, but actually start with gratitude. What were the gifts of the day? What were those moments of beauty, of kindness that maybe we didn't notice, but we want to highlight them? And after you've done that, then we've begun in love, we've started in grace, and then we can move into the harder things like, where was I not quite truthful? What was the harsh word I should have held in? What should I have done that I've been avoiding? And then we can move on to, how do we make things right? Who needs an apology? Where am I called to act on justice? What might I need from God to carry me forward in this journey? And I've kind of cobbled together a version of this when I write in my journal each morning. And I find that putting a pen to paper forces me to be honest. The weight of ink, right? And I write, I do this in cursive in my journal, and I have almost, I write like a doctor, so you can't really read it. So it's like a secret code. Nobody's going to read this, so I can just tell it like it is in my journal. And when I don't write for a while, I tell myself, well, I'm busy. I don't need to do that. But it's really a lie. I'm avoiding something. There's something I should be facing, but I'm really hiding it. I'm hiding from God. And when I go back to my journal, I slowly find my soul again, word by word, like a pilgrim, step by step, knitting myself back together. Sometimes I realize so much more good was happening than I noticed during the day, but writing it down makes it a little real, and I can claim it as, that was good. It makes gratitude tangible. I write myself out of holes that my ego has dug for me. Often by page 2 of writing utter nonsense, there's a clarity that suddenly comes. I have to sometimes write to figure out what I'm thinking underneath it all. And then when I'm done, I feel released, clear, whole. And I think that's what the psalm in the beginning, it's reflecting that feeling when we've come clean and we feel released and in alignment. It says, happiness comes from having your rebellion taken away, from having your failure completely covered. Happiness comes from God not counting your mistakes. You have nothing to hide. The Hebrew word here that gets translated sometimes happy, sometimes blessed, but I think it's closer to well-being. It is well with my soul. Carl Rogers would have called it congruency. Congruence is when what we're projecting to people out there in society is actually who we really are. It's congruent. It's the same. The bones of my soul is aligned. Like the divine chiropractor has come in and set everything straight again. And the psalm goes on to warn us from, don't let things slide from this state of well-being. It says don't go out there and, wait, lost my place here a second. Yeah, here we go. Don't slide from well-being. Then you are like a horse, a mule. I translate it, don't be an ass. They are directed by bit and bridle in their mouth. In other words, they are driven by external forces that are moving them one way or another, rather than some kind of internal sense of what they need to do. It's when we are guided by the external pressures, the ego, the fear, the social pressure. We're being pulled around like a horse with a bit and bridle in its mouth. Now, I love this psalm. Who doesn't want well-being? Alignment, that sense of we're where we need to be, doing what we need to do. We have nothing to hide. We've cleaned it all up. Our feet are on the ground, and we are well protected as we walk our Camino. But in practice, honesty, it's hard. It's hard to face things. Truth about myself, the state of the world, whatever it is. It might seem simple when we're standing at the bottom of the mountain, but the higher you climb, the tougher honesty gets. And if we don't protect our soul every day, it can fail us when we need it the most. I think we're watching one of the most important morality tales in our lifetime when we see behind what's going on with the Epstein files. And a lot of the focus has been on the obvious evil of, sex trafficking and just the taking advantage of young women and girls. And a lot of people have dug into the files of like, ooh, here's the dirt on my political opponent. We're going to get them. But what we've uncovered is a serious moral crisis. It goes far beyond our politics. The participants are Republicans, Democrats, business people, diplomats, philanthropists, healers, professors, scientists, royals. People who run our world that we count on, that should know better. I listened to an interview with journalist Anand Giridharadas, and he wrote a piece in the New York Times, and he'd spent time, he read all those emails that went back and forth between Epstein and all the people in his network. And the title of his article was How the Elite Behave When No One is Watching. And what they reveal is there's a vast network of people trading favors, using each other. Epstein's network offered elite jobs, large-scale financing, notoriety. You could get your book or your screenplay published. And the scandal isn't just that it's people you sort of expect to be morally compromised or politically corrupt. It reaches into people and places you just couldn't imagine. One startling name for me was Noam Chomsky. 50 years, a philosopher that was a relentless critic of elite power. He wrote about the ways that the elite protect their own at the expense of society. And he knew. Epstein had been convicted, and Chomsky kept emailing. Not for money, not for sex, but to be in the room. To be in the room with the elite, the intellectuals of the day. He kept in contact because he wanted that network. The man who wrote the book on elite moral failure found this irresistible. And what held the network together, the journalist says, it's this solidarity of trading favors. It made it too expensive to consult their morality. When their principles conflicted with staying in the network won. And something that especially I can't quite get out of my mind. So much of this happens after Epstein is convicted of sex trafficking. He needed to rebuild his reputation. And he went out and chose people and cultivated a new network. And the journalist said that everybody in that network had one great superpower. They knew how to look away. Because they'd done it before. They looked away from economic inequality. They looked away when gay and trans people were targeted, when the immigrants were targeted, from environmental destruction, from the financial crisis that gutted ordinary families while they collected bonuses. And each time it got a little easier, and each time there was a little less feeling. Callous upon callous on the path. The network wins. The bones waste away. There's no structure, no spine. And the tragedy here is we're not talking about, not everybody in this network are monsters. They're just people who looked away for what they wanted. Compromise by compromise. The psalm invites another path. Oh God, I acknowledge my sin. I do not hide. When we stop hiding from God, we discover what verse 7 has been especially waiting to tell us. It says, you are my hiding place, O God. Not the power network, not the connection that's too expensive to lose, but God is our true hiding place. God is the one that knows everything about us and still calls us beloved. This is the kind of hiding place that our souls are cared for, so that we can be honest, congruent. Wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, it is well with my soul, because I'm not hiding from God. Pilgrims know you got to take care of your feet every day if you want to finish the Camino. And the same is true of our souls. Tell the truth. Soften your calluses. Keep walking. Buen Camino.